One of the things that I always recommend to folks who are really early in their career or just doing internships while still in school is to get as broad of experience and exposure as possible. So, like, do a little bit of a whole lot of different things because through that, you'll find out kind of what you're best in at, what you love doing, and also what you don't like doing.
Yeah.
And then it helps you in every future decision that you make. It gives a lot of really good context. So, I think that's awesome that in 2 weeks you're able to do so much.
Yeah. I mean, you have a lot of plenty of experience as well. I mean, before founding Ampere, you've worked with like stealth aircraft and a bunch of other satellites. So, was there like a specific time that made you say that you really had to start this company?
Yeah, I mean, so correct. I worked at Northrop Grumman, the large aerospace and defense company, and after graduating with my mechanical engineering degree from Caltech, and I had done most of my research in robotics over at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, I picked up probably the coolest job I could imagine at the
Yeah.
time, which was stealth research and development at Northrop. And so this is like the Northrop Grumman Skunk Works working on wildly advanced technologies. Um, and then grew as a program manager there, working on some satellite programs. And over the course of that, I realized that what I love is not just the pure technology, but kind of where the technology meets the world. And so, like, what is the big impact that it can create? How does it affect our lives, both on the day to day and in the long run? And it was those kinds of like the search for really meaningful, challenging, visible problems that I came across this idea around, and this is in 2015, this idea around aircraft electrification. And that was so compelling. I mean, this is almost 10 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
So compelling of an idea. Like that it was the right time to get started, that I and my co-founders were the right people to jump in, and that we actually had a shot of doing something really, really meaningful. It was, I had always thought that I would be an entrepreneur, but I had never started a company in 10 years of thinking that. And this idea around Ampere was just so compelling that as I looked toward my future, I could not imagine a future in which I didn't try. It was as if I had no alternative but to try. And that's when you really know the time is right. When you're just every bit of you is pulled and saying it's now is the moment.
Yeah. So, do you have any like advice for any of these up and coming emerging kind of aerospace startups?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first is to know what is the big impact. Like it can't just be about cool technology. It has to be about, what is the global scale benefit? Second is that it can't just be about the benefit. It has to be for a company, for a startup company especially, you have to be able to deliver something that's really economically compelling to the end users. And this is a strong opinion that I hold that's not agreed upon by everybody. There are a lot of people out there who are building things that would only work in a world if their product was subsidized by governments or if people were willing to pay a high premium. And I think that it's okay to build those companies. It's just if you're building a product where the end user is going to be having to go get a subsidy for it in order to make it economically viable, it holds back the scale at which you can grow and the rate at which you can grow. And I'm in favor of growing as rapidly as possible in a thoughtful ways. And that means that you need to remove a lot of those barriers. So my advice, do something that you're deeply passionate about that matters to the world and creates a big impact, and also is just an economic no-brainer for your end users to buy. And if you
Yes.
can do that, then you can grow really rapidly and do something
Okay.
big.
All right. So you often say that your work must be meaningful, challenging, and visible. So how does kind of Amp Air reflect on those three values for you?
Yeah, so for probably over 20 years now, I've been using three words to really focus the decisions that I make on how I spend my time professionally. And I'm always looking for work that's really meaningful, really challenging, and really visible. So those three factors. So meaningful is, it's about the impact that you create. I think we all only have a few years here, like in the universal sense, just a few years on to be alive and to do something. So let's make it matter. Challenging because we're all capable, and you're most capable when you're pushing yourself to grow, to learn, and really in those challenging moments, you're at the edge, at the peak edge of your contributions, and maximizing your output. And then visible because it's a snowball effect around you. That is, you have a great idea, and it turns on other great ideas for other people, and this is a really positive reinforcement function. And so Ampaire, I believe, absolutely is that. I mean, frankly, I don't think that there are many types of companies that are much harder than building a hardware company in aerospace. And it's a huge lift, so very challenging, super meaningful. When you look at the impact of aviation, let's look at the positives. It is like the arteries and veins that move goods around the world, move goods and people. It is this necessity that we have, and yet the challenge is that it's quite expensive still, and then also that it puts out a lot of pollution. And so
Yeah.
if you can cut down the cost and the environmental impact, you can do a lot of really meaningful work. And then visible, I get the opportunity to share Ampaire's story quite broadly, and then hopefully that inspires some. So it absolutely hits on all three of my key criteria.
Yeah. So, I mean, aerospace is hard. So how did you over the past like 10 decade, how did you kind of get over that stump, like, the hard stump about the factor of aerospace just being hard in general?
Yeah, well, it's been about, yeah, 10 years of building the company. I don't think you ever get over how hard it is. I think that it stays hard,
Sure.
and you just learn to operate within the context. And so there are a few things. You decide what is the scope of work that we choose to do. At Ampere, we have really stayed focused and efficient. And this is in contrast to some who are trying to kind of do everything at once. So, for example, in electric aviation, you can take a strategy like Ampere is taking, where we're really focused in on the propulsion systems and we're upgrading existing airplanes. Or you could try to design a brand new airplane with a new propulsion system, right? So, how we've navigated the challenging nature of this industry is by being laser focused on what we think matters most, and a strategy to win in doing that. Similarly, another example is in picking the right scope of work around even the type of propulsion we do. So some folks are focused on fully electric, maybe hydrogen. We're choosing hybrid electric like a Toyota Prius. Now, Toyota Prius style cars were prolific because you could drive anywhere. You didn't have to worry about plugs. And in the air, the same thing will be true for our hybrids, is that you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. So you can take a really hard, audacious goal, something big and massive, and then you can break it down into little pieces. And you can decide which of these pieces are essential and which are nice to have. And then really focus in on what are those most essential pieces that need to be uncovered first. Put all of your energy and effort into those, and that helps you navigate some of these really challenging aspects, because um, by being focused in these areas, you will be able to succeed kind of however the world evolves around you.
So I'm just curious, going back, why did you believe hybrid and not going fully electric was like the right move?
Yeah, so we began looking at fully electric, and it's very exciting. When we deployed a plane, our first pilot project in Hawaii with one of the airlines out there back in 2020, we spent about a year and a half building what was at the time the world's most advanced hybrid electric airplane. And we spent about the same year and a half trying to get a single level 2 charger installed on the terminal side of the Kahului airport. And the plane beat the charging infrastructure. We were able to get there with this what was the harder problem, was the aircraft propulsion and getting that integrated and having the regulatory approvals. And yet the bottleneck was going to be the infrastructure. And so we went over to the other side of the airport, plugged in at a three-phase plug, no problem. But we realized in that moment that the hardest part of scaling globally was not going to be getting people excited about the planes. It was going to be having sufficient infrastructure, charging infrastructure to support the operations. And then when we looked at what our customers really needed from an operational standpoint, we looked at how much range they needed, what the variety of airports they needed to be able to fly to and from, the flexibility of their fleet to redeploy planes on any of their routes. And we realized that if you were stuck only flying 50, 100 miles, 150 miles fully electric, and it must be between point A and point B where both have charging infrastructure, you were really, really going to limit yourself almost to being such a niche that it was irrelevant. And it was in that moment that we realized that we had to go with a hybrid electric solution because it eliminated the range anxiety, eliminated the charging infrastructure wait time, and enabled our customers to really drop this better solution into their existing operations.
Okay, so in 10 years from now, do you think there might be like a shift where you might have to go to fully electric instead of sticking with hybrid?
So I think that 10 years from now, we're going to see that hybrids are still prolific.
Okay.
Just like if you look back on the data and you look at hybrid electric cars on the ground, first one around the year 2000, and then when did fully electric really take over?
Like
Well, the
2020.
reality,
Yeah.
and it depends on which city you were in. Maybe if you're
Gotcha.
in Los Angeles or one of the major cities out there, then there are lots of electric cars. But fly to most states, most cities, and you won't find sufficient charging infrastructure even yet. Even though fully electric makes a ton of sense for a lot of operations and on the ground, a lot of times hybrids still kind of own the market. So I think that's what we're going to see in aviation is that you're going to have hybrids continuing to grow in the size of aircraft, in the performance of the vehicle. And then for certain markets, the hybrid is going to be the gateway for the fully electric technology because all of the trust that you build up on the system, on the hardware, on the software, on the regulatory approvals, the maintenance, the spares parts, like all of these things that you've had to do for the hybrids. Now everybody has that as the foundation that enables the more electric or maybe even fully electric. And absolutely, I think, for example, in the airplane that's over my shoulder here, a Cessna Grand Caravan, which we're making hybrid electric, 10 years from now, there will be markets where fully electric makes a ton of sense and where there's charging infrastructure. And what we're trying to do is enable the operators of these planes to be able to adopt initially more electric planes like our hybrids, and then we can offer them the fully electric planes down the road.
Okay, so in terms of like your competition, like Ampaire's competition, what are they doing that's kind of different from you or that Ampaire's doing better than them?
Sure. So Ampaire is very, very good at staying focused. While many other players are uh, focusing their energies on, like, let's say, hydrogen propulsion systems that require not just a propulsion system, but kind of a reevaluation on the aircraft performance, a complete build out of ground infrastructure. Similarly, with the folks who are looking at electric, who are in our peer group, and they're looking at both propulsion and all of the ground infrastructure as well. Or you're looking at the people who are doing even hybrid electric airplanes, but they're working on all of the airplane stuff, which is a ton of work. That each of those cases, they lack focus compared to where Ampaire is focusing its resources. And this is our ability to move much more rapidly and to use the resources that we have more efficiently, and ideally to get into market and to own market share in a more in a more successful way because of that strategy. And so when you look at either the propulsion side or the new aircraft developer side, Ampaire is pretty outstanding with regard to that really efficient, focused approach that also enables us to capture just a massive scale market along the way.
Well, is there any certain breakthrough technology that's gonna help Ampere in the future that's you're watching closely?
So we're definitely looking at a few breakthroughs. And when I think about breakthrough, it's about think of the full set of experience or knowledge that the world has, and then just kind of pushing that set out just by a little bit. It's about doing a world first, setting a new precedent. So in fact, a lot of the breakthroughs are ones that we're going to have to develop ourselves. So for example, we're the first in the world to have gotten the G1 issue paper. It's a certification basis from the FAA. And that's a really big deal. Now, it's a bit of jargon and most people have never heard of the thing, but it's really big deal for us, but also for the industry, because we're gaining the types of approvals that set precedent for the rest of the future. Similarly, we're working with supply chain and building out the kind of the first of a kind hardware for aviation that does these things, whether electric or hybrid electric, and that is absolutely breakthrough technology. Whether it's around the power density of the motors or the efficiency of the cooling systems or the energy density of the battery packs, the software certification process, or just the fact that something can get certified, all very much breakthroughs. And every one of these enables each subsequent iteration to go just a little bit faster. And that really just opens up the aperture for the industry.
So, if you could redesign US aviation policy to accelerate sustainable flight, what's like the first thing that you would change?
Yeah, so I mean, you think about this because you end up getting to know people who are high up in these organizations. Um, what I would do is, I think the first thing I would do is I would make all of the information much more tractable, much more accessible. All the information is already published, so it's not that it's not there, but just think about the difference between reading your textbook to learn something and asking ChatGPT a very focused question
Mhm.
about it, right? And the efficiency with which you can gain information is immense if you package that information thoughtfully. And I think right now we have some really amazing cutting edge tools out there that are helping people gather and organize information in ways that simply weren't possible just a few years ago. So from a regulatory standpoint, if I were rebuilding the aviation industry, the first thing I would do is start to structure that information in a way that with no AI hallucinations, you have to be very thoughtful about this, but I would structure it in a way that it was very accessible and intuitive so that during the innovation process, innovators ended up with a end product that was directly aligned with what the regulatory bodies like the FAA already expected, and give that a handshake over to maybe a regulatory piece of software that was able to quickly review all of the work that was done, all of the engineering, and identify and flag maybe something was out of alignment with regulatory requirements. And this would drive an efficiency in the innovation cycle for this highly regulated, hardware intense industry. I would just supercharge innovation, increased levels of safety, and ultimately drive a lot of really, really amazing product into our day to day lives. And so I don't think that it's actually that difficult, but you just need a lot of stakeholders and a lot of the information. And if you're able to pull that together, you can, I think, create a kind of a transformative opportunity across the industry. Yeah.
Okay. So, as like a final fun question, so if you could have one sentence carved into the fuselage of every future Ampere aircraft, what would you want it to say?
I would carve three words into every fuselage. Those three words would be trusted, practical, compelling. Those three words are from the core of our mission statement as an organization. to be the world's most trusted developer of practical, compelling electrified aircraft, from short haul cargo to supersonic passenger transport. And those three keywords, trusted, practical, and compelling, define all the decisions we make, how we act, the products we make, how we spend our day to day. And they would sit quite well on the fuselage of each future aircraft that comes out.